Join me now to weigh in, representing Arizona's 5th Congressional District, Congressman Andy Biggs. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me. Congressman, I'm not trying to be negative here, just pointing out the truth here, which is the American people are not satisfied with how Biden is handling America, our issues here at home, and also abroad. And for him to make those reckless remarks over the weekend, I don't know what's worse, his actual statement about regime change or the fact that they had to backtrack and pretend that Biden didn't mean that. What's worse?
Well, you know, Stephanie, you're right. It's a real sobering time, isn't it? And this president has really shown that he's not confident to lead the U.S., let alone step out onto the international stage. I mean, so you have him saying basically to change the regime in Russia, and then immediately his handlers have spent days now trying to backtrack that. And you couple that with this statement about chemical warfare, or we're going to have troops on the ground in Ukraine, or that any of these sanctions don't work. I mean, he can't get his story straight on the international stage, and so we look bad. Not only do we look bad domestically because of his statements, but think of this: you've got even France's Emmanuel Macron, their president, has said his statements have undermined the peace negotiation process, where they were talking about, quite frankly, getting a ceasefire first and then getting into a peace situation where the Russians would withdraw. And basically, Biden undermined that. And that's what happens when you have somebody who is not capable of communicating properly, clearly, and who doesn't have a real good handle on, quite frankly, where he is at any given time.
Yeah, and as you know, rhetoric matters, and what we're hearing from the president matters. And Russian President Vladimir Putin, he's listening. And it's just not a good look. And also just our enemies around the world are watching, and our allies as well.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got Xi Jinping, he's going to be watching. Kim Jong-un, the Ayatollah in Iran, who we basically are trying to give away the farm to in the JCPOA agreement. The bad guys of the world, they watch this and they become emboldened. The weaker nations, or nations that sympathize with us or agree with us, they fear because we basically take this weak posture. I mean, we're begging for oil from Venezuela and Iran, for Pete's sakes. Saudi Arabia, we won't take our calls. And there's talk of taking the renminbi instead of dollars. Putin's wanting rubles instead of dollars. And so you have all kinds of problems that have occurred simply because Biden doesn't have a clear objective, and he's incredibly weak.
Yeah, it's just so infuriating. Now I want to shift gears here and ask you about this. So the January 6th witch hunt continues. This is going on in the background. The Democrats apparently don't realize that we have other big issues to fry in this country. They don't care. They want to use this as a political weapon for the midterm elections because they know that it's not looking good for them right now. So they need something to campaign on, right? They need to say, hey, don't vote for the GOP because they support insurrectionists. So either way, the House committee is moving on. They're seeking a contempt of Congress charge against 2 former Trump officials. I mean, Dan Scavino and Navarro. I mean, this is just insane. It just continues.
Yeah, and you're right for the rationale. The rationale is not to get at the truth. The rationale is tried to create a political diversion for the Democrats. I mean, you're right on the money there. But look, you got Dan Scavino, Pete Navarro. These are guys that basically had nothing to do with anything that happened in the Capitol on January 6th. Yet they're still going to attack them, and they're trying to abuse their power. And what they need to remember is, you know, payback can be a real bummer sometimes, and so they might find themselves having to answer for this abuse of power and extension of what they've been trying to do, which we don't really know what they're trying to do. It's an illegitimate committee to begin with, and Nancy Pelosi needs to be held accountable as long as with these folks on this committee.
And then think of all of those who have been, you know, dragged through the mud during these investigations. Think about those who have had really no due process. There's been just a total lack of transparency of the protesters and the rioters, those who are in jail. I mean, I know that several members of Congress have been bringing attention to this. And again, I'm not for people committing crimes or breaking the law, but you want to make sure that the punishment actually fits the crime, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You have people that have been in jail now for, what, 14 months or longer. They haven't been convicted of anything. They're just sitting in jail awaiting due process. So they're not getting their due process. They would like to have hearings, trials, whatever. They're not getting that. And at the same time, this committee is basically ignoring all of that stuff, and they're just focused on basically trying to emasculate the Republican Party and going after him that way. And to me, it's just a real travesty and needs to ultimately be resolved. And I hope when we get control and get the majority back, we can resolve these issues and re-enshrine due process as one of the key elements of a government that's governed by rule of law.
I hope so, too. Well, Congressman, we're out of time. We're going to leave it here. Thank you.